Hey everybody, Anthony Roberts here, ARcreates, and I've got another tutorial for you today. You've probably seen quite a few people on Instagram using this effect in their designs, but I'm going to show you my take on this fabric ink bleed where it looks like you've used a marker or a gel pen or something and the ink is kind of spread out through the fabric. I think it's a really neat effect, and I've seen a couple of different tutorials. Everybody kind of has their own way of doing it, but I'm going to show you my version today. And keep in mind that depending on the fonts that you use, if you use a different font, if you're different sizes, different canvas size or project size than what I'm doing, the effects that I'm using scale. So you may have to adjust the numbers differently from what I am using. But let's go ahead and jump into Photoshop and get started.
Caught up in this traffic, my graphics looking tragic. I am so close on the precipice of magic, like lightning in a bottle. If only I could catch it. ARcreates, could you help me fix my graphic?
All right, I'm going to create my new document at 1080 by 1350 to get that portrait look for Instagram. And let's go ahead. I'm just going to type the word in all caps, ink bleed. And it's best, I found out that this effect looks really good when you use a really thick font, something that's really bold. So I'm going to use Helvetica New or Helvetica Now Display X. It's a good font for this. I really like it. And just go ahead and type your words out here and get everything positioned like you want. Right there, that will work. And I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so we'll be able to see there. All right, so that's going to be our first step. And then let's go ahead and pick a background color. Actually, I want this text to be, we'll go ahead and make this kind of an off-white. Let's use F2, F2, F2 to get that. And then for our background, we'll just go ahead and pick a bright orange. So that matches there. Now, the next thing I want to do is we are going to make these two one object. So if you will highlight both of your text layers and right click and hit convert to smart object, now this is no longer an editable font. It's just simply a smart object that we can change. So we're going to leave that right there. And then if you will select your new smart object layer, double click over here in the layers panel, and this will bring up our layer style. So the first thing we need to do is add a stroke to this. Now I'm going to use kind of a dark black sort of gray look, and I'm going to make it kind of big. So I'm going to select outside, and I'm going to make it 30. Let's go with 40. 40 will look good on that. Click OK. And then now we're going to resize this just a little bit to bring it down. And this is where I was talking about your size will matter what thickness you want the stroke to be. Because if you notice, if I drag this down to really small, the stroke just looks like one big glob behind it. So you want kind of a thick stroke, but you want to make it match the font and everything that you use. So I'm going to leave mine right here. Now, important step here is that because this stroke is kind of like an extra effect, if we go through and try to make our ink bleed type effect right now, it's not going to work that well. So what we're going to do is right click on our smart object here, and we're going to rasterize the layer style. So now that you can see our bounding box is around the whole thing. Now, if you want to go back and edit these things, you can always just Control J or Command J before you do something so that you create a layer copy and you can work off of layers. But let's go ahead and convert this one back to a smart object now so that we can go back and change our effects if we decide we want something different. Now, on the next part, if you want to add a little bit of texture to your layer, this is a good time to go ahead and do that. So I've got several paper textures that I use, folded paper textures. You could create one with a texture effect in Photoshop if you don't have anything like this, but I like to go ahead and do this part now. And I'll kind of show you why here in just a minute. So we're just going to pick this nice folded one. Put that in our background. I'm going to resize it. And then let's adjust the layer effect. Let's put it on lighten or screen. I'm sorry. Let's put it on screen. So I like the way that that looks. Okay. And now here is where we are going to get into making this look like it's ink bleed, giving it a real fabric effect. Okay. So the way that I do this, because I may want to go back later and change the backgrounds, I may want to change the colors, I may just change my mind on this whole thing. So what I like to do is group everything together first, and then Control J or Command J and hide my original one. Okay. And so now I've got a whole group of these that I can go back. You know, I've got my original one. So if I go and change stuff in here, I haven't lost my original. So that's one thing that you can do. Or if you have everything here, you can hit Control Shift Alternate E. And what that will do is create a layer with everything on there. This is what I found works really good to get this effect. Instead of, you know, making a group, combining everything into a smart object, you can actually just Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E, and you get it basically just everything that's visible on the screen, puts it in a new layer. It's already flattened. So we're going to be working off of this, this layer where everything you see, if I move it, it moves the whole layer. I don't have control over the individual pieces anymore. So the first thing we're going to do when we're at this point, if we go up to Filter in the top menu, Other, and then click on Minimum, okay? And you want to preserve the roundness. And then you can see as we drag this, if we go to the extreme, you see how it kind of, it rounds everything out. It adjusts the dark colors. It makes the dark colors more prominent. You don't want to go too far. So usually on this one, I'm going to select let's go to 1.5. And you can see it's kind of got these sort of uneven kind of look to it now, kind of blob. If you look down here, after we zoom in, you can see you kind of got these rough edges and stuff right in here. That's kind of what we want, okay? So once we've applied the minimum effect, we're going to go back, go to Filter, and click on Filter Gallery, okay? Now I'm going to delete the effects first. So the first effect that we want to apply is the Texturizer. So over here on the right, you can look, it's the bottom one. If you click on Texturizer, Texture and then Texturizer, I'm going to select Canvas. I like the way the canvas looks. So you can see it already kind of has that, that canvas, that fabric effect to it. Now, scaling is going to apply, you know, how much do we want? Do we want very little texture? We can go all the way to the other end and get a lot of texture. I tend to stay somewhere on this one around the 75 to 100 range. You just have to play with it a little bit until you kind of get that effect that you want. And then the relief, as you can see, if we go all the way to the left, we have barely any texture. If we go all the way to the right, we have the maximum amount of texture. So again, we just want to apply this, you know, if you want kind of a faded look, you want this to be more of a, like a weathered kind of canvas look, you can add a little more relief in there. So it's really just playing with these sliders until we figure out what we want. And then from the light, you can just select bottom, left, right. This kind of gives you, if you'll notice, it kind of changes the grain of the texture. For this instance, I'm just leaving mine on top. I like the way that that looks. Okay. So we've kind of got the fabric look now to it. Now we're going to get the bleed. So if you come all the way down here, At the very bottom right, there's a little plus sign, and we'll add a new layer on top. Now, by default, it's going to add Texturizer again because that's what we have. So instead of that, we're going to go to Brush Strokes and go to Splatter, okay? Now, first thing we're going to want, there's all kinds of things in here, but make sure that it's on spatter. And then our spray radius is how much we want. So if we go minimum, you can see there's not a lot there. If we go all the way to the right, it gets almost unreadable because there's so much splatter. So what we're going to do is kind of adjust it. Like right now, I'm on 6, and that's a little too much. So let's back it back down to about 4, where we have that, and then we can smooth this out. If we go all the way to the left, we have no smoothness. It's like the maximum, kind of spatter that we're looking at. And then if we go all the way right, it pretty much takes the effect away. So this again is, how much do we want? Do we want a lot? Do we want a little? I'm going to adjust mine back down to about 3 on the spray radius. And then I'm going to turn the smoothness up to, about 6 or 7, somewhere around in there. And so you can see now that if we click OK, and if we zoom way in on this, you can see that it really has a fabric look. It looks like on the edges it has started to bleed. Now, what I like to do at this point is Control J, so we have a new layer. Okay, we basically duplicated that layer with the ink bleed effect. Then I'm gonna go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we're gonna turn this down probably, we want slightly out of focus. So not, we don't want it blurry completely like this. That loses the effect, but probably right around 1.2, somewhere like that. Okay. Now, if we hide and do this, you can see this, the sharpness kind of goes away there. So in order to mix both of these together, you can go down and you can see how the different effects work. You could try some of these if you wanted. I like to use pen light. And so it's very, very slight, but if you zoom in, you can kind of see that it changes a little bit, especially if you take, let's take the fill down just a little bit. It kind of does the edges. Or if we went to overlay and then you kind of adjust the fill there, you can make it, kind of fade it out a little bit. You can add a little more texture in there. So that's just kind of one thing I like to do. But this is it. This is what I like. And now if we wanted to, we can combine, let's duplicate both of these layers so that we, keep the originals. So we keep that, and then I'm going to apply both of these to a smart object. So now we have an editable smart object right here. With this, you could add even more effects if you wanted to. We could, you could adjust the contrast on it. You can adjust, we could fade it out. We can adjust the brightness and all that by keeping it as a smart object. So we'll change that a little bit there. Then if we wanted to, we can go back. We can add our paper texture back again to keep this effect. We'll resize it. And then let's change this to screen. If you wanted it darker, you could do overlay, but we're going to leave this one on screen or lighten. I kind of like screen. And then I'm just going to turn the fill down just a little bit on it so it's not all the way through. And there you go. Now you have this kind of faded out ink bleed sort of look. Once you have the main thing, adding textures on top of it is really simple. There's another one that looks good is if you have like a poster. I have a few poster textures. Let's see if I can find those really quick. And just put one of these on here. Like this. We'll resize again. Make this fit. And these wrinkles and stuff will look really good in here. So again, you can just, select the one that you like. Overlay. I kind of change the color, but I like multiply on this. And then we'll just sort of, fade it in and out. So there you go. Brand new tutorial. Very easy. It seems like a lot of steps at first. Seems like a lot of duplicating this and that. But it's actually really easy to do. You'll get the hang of it pretty quick. As always, if you enjoy this tutorial, if you learn something out of it, you make something using it, tag me on Instagram at ARcreates. And I would love to see what you do. Talk to you guys later.